We are live. Hi, everybody. You can still hear me, right?
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. I can hear me too. I'm loud. So I'm starting this over. Um, Hello. I'm going to start jumping in and asking you questions. I'm going to let you present to everybody. Okay. There you go. You're back in
All
the
right.
center. So, since you can hear me and I can hear you,
Yes.
why don't you just give us a really quick introduction all over again? And let's jump right into some activism and some justice. I'm ready when you were.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yes, you start.
And what do you want me to start with exactly?
Okay. Well, one of the cases I've been working on for justice is towards justice is Kanika Jenkins. And a lot of times, I don't think people know the legalities and everything that's involved when you are trying to get case reopened or when you're on the ground protesting. Some people know the protesting aspect and they don't know the legal aspect. So I really want you to touch on the legal aspect, paperwork, what you go through, what you deal with, and just the persistence that it takes, and also the wherewithal that it takes.
Well, one, let me say that social activism is not like it looks like on TV or in the movies. You know, people saw the movie Selma.
Uh-huh.
They get out here and fight issues. You know, saw Eyes on the Prize as a little kid. It's actually more complicated. It's very dangerous,
Okay.
um, and it can be detrimental to your career, your future, your family, your finances, and your life. And so I would say, whenever you get involved um, in engaging a public issue and engaging the public, that just be mindful of how dangerous it is. And I mean, obviously there aren't dogs and hoses anymore, at least not right now. You know, but we learned from Charlottesville that you can get hit by a car. You know, we um, we're learning that snipers might be present, bombs might be placed, agent provocateurs might be on the scene, and so I think a lot of
Mhm.
times people rally and protest
Okay.
and don't think about the danger. It's very dangerous. And so now let's talk about like the legal stuff. You know, a lot of times we don't get permits for what we do, and I think that's fine. But when you do that, you got to make sure that you are on public property. You know, so the
Right.
sidewalk, but you can't block an entrance and an exit to a building. I mean, you can, but obviously that's against the law, and you potentially can get arrested for that. You can't block the entrance and exit of a business. You can't block driveways, right? You can't block parking lots. So when you're protesting, even though you can use the sidewalk or the street, you have to use it appropriately. Also, when I don't think people think about it a lot, but if you jump out on an issue, you have to have some kind of tie to the issue. So if it's a person, you might want to contact and build a relationship with the family members. If they have acquired a lawyer, you may want to reach out to the lawyer, and build a relationship with the lawyer, so that you're not just kind of out there willy nilly, but there's some kind of connection to
Mhm.
the wronged individual, to the wronged community, et cetera, et cetera. I also think you have to be careful about chants and rhetoric and speeches, because you don't want what you do to be characterized as threatening, as hate speech, or put you in a position where somebody can get a PPO on you, or bring legal action against your group because of what you said, right? And so I mean, those are some of the things I think
Right.
folks think about.
Now, let's talk about when you do the meetings, because I have been in meetings with senators, governors, and things like that. Let's talk about that aspect of taking on an issue and being an activist.
Well, number one, there's a difference between a rally and a meeting. And there's a difference between a protest and a meeting. And there's a difference between saying no and demanding something and then negotiating your way to it. I think a lot of people who are activists are not prepared for meetings. They prepare for rallies. You know, shouting in the bullhorn is one thing, but when you're sitting across the table from somebody, you got to have a demand. What do you want? And it has to be clear and it has to be deliverable. It can't, you know, it can't be crazy. You know, this is not the miracle wonder work in business. You know, this is social justice. So, you know, say for instance, somebody gets killed by a police officer wrongfully. But what you want, you go and you say, well, we want a swift investigation. We want the police officer on leave, pending the investigation outcome without pay. You know, we want to meet with the chief. We want to know what the protocols are for the use of deadly force. I mean, you have to have demands when you go into the meeting, and then the demands had to be tied to not just the issue, but tied to the industry you're engaging, right? So I hear an echo. And then the demands had to be tied to not just the issue, but tied to. Hello.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm hearing the echo though. I can hear the YouTube or whatever in the background.
Okay, I'll stop it.
Okay. Or just mute it.
No, I was watching you on my other device.
It was just hard for me to talk and hear myself talking. But okay. So what am I saying? So like when we went to MSU, right, and we were talking to MSU about why were they providing a platform and a building for Richard Spencer, who is obviously a hate supporter and bringing hate speech. I mean, we didn't go. We went in force, but we went respectful. And when we got in that meeting, we made our case. You know, this is not a part of the marketplace of ID. Hate speech can be hateful, and certain speech also can be threatening. White supremacy doesn't need a platform. I mean, we made our case, but then we also got into the details of the case. What's the university's rental policy? How is it that a white supremacist group can rent a building on campus, even though they're not a registered student organization on campus? I mean, so we went into the rental policy. You know, what is MSU's policy on hate crimes, hate speech? And so we did our research on who the building was rented to and how the building was rented, and tied that to the rental policy. And so instead of just going and saying we don't like this, we went in and said, we want you all to rethink and reform your rental policy so that you're not in a position where you're bringing violence and renting buildings to hate organizations in the future. And so I'm saying when you had to have these meetings, the ask have to be very, very specific and deliverable. It's not enough to go in and say, I don't like this. You're not going in and stop. I mean, you have to go in and have a reasoned ask, a reasonable ask.
Right. Like with this case right here, once you, it reminds me so much of Kendrick Johnson. You look at the police did the same thing. They don't acquire the original hard drive. You don't have the missing footage that's necessary. The person goes in alive and they come out and nobody knows where the footage is. No original footage is available. And I think when the protesters started, they started on the ground protesting, but it's that whole aspect to where's your congressperson at? You don't just want the case reopened. You want a new investigation to take place, which means you want a different set of officers or whomever investigating now, because I think everybody knows that now in Chicago, the two attorney generals, they're running on anti-corruption. That's their platform. You know, we have an anti-corruption campaign. We know it's here in the state of Illinois. We know it's big. Now we need to clean up. And then you see people sit by like senators, attorney generals, representatives and they don't do anything. And then you got people who are not pushing them and people who may not know how to go in and make their demands and negotiate.
Yeah, and also though you have to know who to talk to about what, because if something happens on the local level, you can't immediately go and talk to a congressperson or a U.S. senator. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have to walk up the chain. So you start with the alderman or the city council. You start with the chief of police. You start with the county prosecutor. You start on the local level and work your
Mm-hmm.
way up, because if you go straight to the top, they're gonna just tell you to go back to the bottom. And when you get to the top, you really are gonna. When you get to a congressperson or a senator, you want to be able to say, "Well, we met with the mayor, we met with the chief of police, we
Mm-hmm.
met with the county prosecutor, we met with, and this is what we asked them to do." And so the reason why we're meeting with you is not because we want you to do their job, but we want you to use your leverage to help them understand they need to meet our demands.
Good word right there, leverage. And so my perspective is because they've used, everybody's already met at that level. So now my strategy is I'm top down, and I've always been a top down type of person. That's just been me all my life. I go to the person that's at the very top who got the most authority, and then you go down and you get everybody else. But when I come, I've always been able to substantiate what I'm saying. I'm coming with like 20 pages right off the back, and that may be my little introductory.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not just coming to you with some hodgepodge. I have actually did some thorough research. I can come with some facts and I can present and make my case. I'm not coming out here yelling, screaming, doing whatever. And then you just get to walk away. And then I think another big thing is the follow up. A lot of people do not follow up.
Right. And so let me say before we get to follow up, um, you want to record the meetings and you want to ask permission to record, is permission to record this meeting. If they don't want the meeting recorded, you want to take copious notes. Who's in the meeting, what they said, the date, the time, you know what I mean? All of that, right? Because you want to be able to reference that. And then you want the deliverables to be given to you in writing. Like, you don't leave a meeting without agreeing what's going to happen next.
I think you said a whole bunch right there, because a lot of times the recording does not take place. You do not have that where you go in and you get the recording. Like me, I'll get the paperwork, but I don't always get the live recordings.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, you want to get that because you always want to be able to establish what was established. Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to follow up with people and give them the opportunity to wiggle out of what they said they were going to do in the meeting, because there's no record of what they said they were going to do.
Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm looking through the comments section. Um, Margaret, okay, she wants to establish an email chain. We can definitely do that. Um, and let's talk about language too and changing laws, because I'm for not just getting things reopened. I like to change laws, and quite naturally, I want the termination of people's jobs on the lower end too for not doing what they should have done, because it's a difference when you get in there and you're being completely incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole another level to me, that you didn't even try. You're just not competent at all. And I see a lot of that. Not only that, I also want to talk about the false narratives that get spun by law enforcement or people who attempt to protect them. And then it kind of twists people up in a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you speak to that? Because
I would say about false narratives. I mean, that's why you have to use the media. Social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and then the news media, print media, television news media, press conferences, and the idea is to use the media to control the narrative, and also update the community on what's going on. And so I would say, any campaign has to have its own coherent, comprehensive um, media component. And so, you have to pick the spokesperson. These have to be whoever's
Mm-hmm.
talking has to be media savvy. If you're gonna have more than one person talking, they have to have talking points. You have to make sure they're on the same page.
Yes.
um, that they're not publicly putting out different statements in the media, and so the media can be a tool to help control the narrative, control the story, and hold the other party accountable. With respect to people who are not doing their jobs, with respect to changing laws, I mean, I think those are obviously campaigns, and so I think there's a difference between, say, responding to police brutality or responding to a missing person, or responding to whatever you're responding to. There's a difference between that and running a campaign where the goal is to say, change a law, recall an official, or change public policy, because um, those are longer events. And
Mm-hmm.
the world we live in is a quick, short media cycle. It's 124 characters on Twitter, and so the difficulty with long campaigns is that sometimes it's hard to stay before the public or be in the public eye while you're fighting those campaigns. But whatever you do on the media side, make sure that the campaign has a coherent media component, and you have a spokesperson. You got talking points, and so you can articulate. We went in and we said this. We're marching because of this. We're demanding this. We expect to get this, right? Because the worst thing for any campaign is for you to get eyes via media and have a muffled message.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so somebody just asked, because it's been so much misinformation out here pertaining to this particular, one of these particular cases I'm working on. How do you fight the online misinformation? And I don't even think I would want to try to rebuttal everybody, but what is your perspective on that?
Well, I mean, the internet is a garbage can. So, it's like saying, how do you keep a landfill clean? But but you can establish official platforms. Buy a domain, start a website. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, write about what you're doing in blog form.
Mm-hmm.
Establish a Facebook page, a Facebook group. So, you notice sometimes people will say, like, the official Kanye West Instagram or the official this. I think it's important when you're doing campaigns to buy the domain name and establish a website, establish an Instagram, establish a Twitter, establish platforms for the campaign so
Mm-hmm.
that people know these are the official platforms for the campaign. I don't care what everybody else is saying and doing. If you want the official word, come to this. Or if you have an established organizational brand, you can use
Mm-hmm.
your organization's social media
Mm-hmm.
and website to post information about the campaign, and then people know, okay, right. If you wanted the bona fide facts or update,
Mm-hmm.
go to the website, and I think that's about the best you could do.
Right. And I'm with that because I'm all for establishing the app part, the official web pages, going through the whole legal and just ramifications. Organization is really what it is. It's being super organized. And I'm looking through here and trying to see what are some other questions um, about votes. I lost some people along the way, but they'll view back into the live later. I'm trying to cover some questions that I think people would want to know. let's touch a little bit back on activism again, because
Okay.
um, you do a lot, and I know a lot of people out here call themselves activists. But why don't you really define activism again?
Well, let me
Because
say it this way. Let me talk about activism in this way. Being active and being an activist are two different things.
thank you.
Being busy is not being an activist.
Mm-hmm.
I think activism, as I understand it, it involves a couple of things:
Mm-hmm.
building power, organizing people, organizing money, so that you can accomplish a specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so rallying without a demand is not activism. That's just blowing off steam.
Right.
Marching from nowhere to nowhere for nothing is a parade.
Okay.
Um, Talking without any intention of doing
Mm-hmm.
is group therapy. And so activism, the activist is trying to do something and knows what that is and is building the power, organizing the people and the resources to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what an activist is. I'm sitting in my car in front of a store that I have to close shortly, but I'm in front of this store that I have to close because we bought the store, but we talked about buying it a year and a half ago. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's not activism, that's more community economic empowerment. But we weren't just having panel discussions about stores, and we weren't just having meetings about the store, and we
Right.
weren't just complaining about how we don't have a store, right? We strategically built power, organized money, organized people to accomplish a goal, and we did that.
Okay. Now, this person just asked, um, how much proof is needed to get a case reopened like this, and what kind of demands? I know the type of demands I want to make, but I'm gonna let you answer that. What type of demands do you make involving death? And I know you have you deal with a lot of death.
You mean like a death? What? But a police officer killing someone, somebody else killing someone, somebody has died, and what?
Somebody has died, and
Yeah, I
the
mean, well, look, somebody died, and the facts of the case seem murky. One, you want the police report. You want the
yeah,
you want the
right.
police report to be made public. One, you want to see it, and you
Okay.
want it to be made public. If they won't make it public, you want them to create a forum where at least certain members of your group or your community can see the report. You want the report, and you want to, because one, you want to see if the police report was comprehensive. Then when you talk to the police, you want to ask them about their protocols for reporting. Okay, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to the detectives, and you want to take them through exactly what do you all do, right? How did you all generate this report? Did you look at all the surveillance tapes? Who did you talk to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that you can get an idea of not just what the report says, but how they made that report, because
Okay.
maybe there are some things they didn't do, right? Because the report is the product of a process. So you don't just want to read the product. You want to ask critical questions about the process that produced the product. If you
Okay.
don't feel like the police have done their job, right, you can demand that they do another investigation. You can demand that somebody else do the investigation. That may involve the police, or that may involve, now you're getting into prosecutors. Um, in this case, it may involve FBI. It
Mm.
may involve other law enforcement or legal entities, right, what to get done what you don't think was done. But
Right.
but right, but I
And
think
I've spoken with the FBI, and a judge has recused himself off this case. One judge so far has recused himself off this case because, and that's how you know you're getting into some shady stuff. I've been watching kind of everything.
Yeah, I mean, typically when people recuse themselves, they got some kind of tie that they shouldn't have or something that's going on. But I would say it all starts with the initial findings. What are they, and how did the police arrive at those findings? Like we had a kid in Detroit that was killed by the police, for example, named Damon Grimes.
Right. I remember that.
You know, initially he was running from the cops and got killed. But then later reports, the autopsy showed that there were nodes from the taser in his head. You know what I'm saying? So from a community perspective, your accountability is not based upon how you feel. It is always based upon what has happened or what hasn't happened. And so then you need to get all of the information. What did the
Mm-hmm.
autopsy say? When was the autopsy performed? How long was it between the time of death and the autopsy? When was the time of death? What were the circumstances that led to the death? Right? What did the police find? Who did they talk to? You see what I'm saying? I mean, so you
Right.
want to get all the information about the investigation and what happened, so that then you can ask critical questions about how those investigations happen, right? And you can ask critical questions about maybe what didn't happen and what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Then you make your demands. Well, I noticed after we went through this that the police never talked to these people. Or I noticed after we went through this, the autopsy says this, right? But if the autopsy says this, well, then did you all check for this? And that's how you begin to get the process moving.
That's good. This is good information. Um, yeah, some people are making comment. That's okay. Yeah, they are pointing out some. I'm looking at the chat window, and they are pointing out some serious facts here to me that definitely I've covered on my channel, and that can be utilized to reorganize and uh, kind of eliminate some riffraff and some falsehoods that have been put out, and maybe some information that was overlooked that should have been looked at. Okay, now we talked about that. Let's talk about because you have a nonprofit organization, and most activists that I know, and I'm not trying to be funny, usually have nonprofits. What was the purpose in your nonprofit and um, the activism? How do your nonprofit and your activism go together?
Well, let's be clear. I mean, if you have a 501c3 status, if you have that status, you have to be careful about the kind of organizing that you do. You really don't want to do political organizing uh, with the 501c3. That can get you into trouble. So, the 501c3 typically is used for like community education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, if you're educating the community about police brutality, or if you're educating the community about an unsolved murder that needs to be solved, well, then you can use your nonprofit in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Help raise funds, so that you can do the work. But I would definitely tell people that whatever you have, 501c3, 501c4,
Mm-hmm.
527, LLC, I mean, whatever you have, just make sure that you're using it appropriately, because it can come back to bite you. And on one occasion, I shut down the freeway.
I remember that.
Opening day, and there was a conservative backlash to that, where folks tried to potentially mess with the tax exempt status of one of the nonprofits that I had, but it ended up not working. But just so folks know that when you're out in the public fighting issues, there are opponents and enemies. I mean, there can be consequences and repercussions for doing this great work.
Right.
I
Right.
could take one. I could take one more.
You can take one more.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, I want to make this really good. You talked about eyes. Well, let's talk about the courtroom battle. Let's go there because people can throw. Let's talk about the other side because, like I said, most people can go out. They can do the footwork, the protest. But let's talk about the legal side. The years it takes when you are on the other side. Let's talk about that.
Well, before we talk about how long it takes, because definitely the wheels of justice turn slow. But before we talk about how long it takes, let's talk about how much money you need. I mean,
Okay.
there is no legal anything without money.
Well, let's go here.
A lot of activists and organizations struggle with fundraising. Um, you really need to be fundraising and raising money all the time if you're going to be successful at any campaign. But if you're going to engage the judicial system, you're going to need to retain a lawyer, and that's going to cost. And so let's start there. And then of course you're right. I mean, it's changing stuff through the courts could take a long time. And during that time, the media might stop covering it. During that time, people might lose their passion about it. During that time, it may be eclipsed by other issues. And so it's going to be very, very important to kind of dig in and be prepared for just how slow the courts can be.
Okay. So we talked about money, and it's been people out here raising a host of money, but whatever with that. I still want to talk about because a lot of people, like I said, I've been in the presence of judges and spoken with attorneys and had to sit up in people's faces where they can be extremely condescending and assume that they're talking above your head. And you know, and dealing with media. Let's talk that. Let's talk about that.
I just think people need to have media training. They need to have talking points. You don't go out there willy-nilly or half-cocked. When you're fighting, you know what you're fighting for. You know what your message is. You have to craft that, right? It's not emotion. It's not the one who's the loudest. It's the one who's the clearest. It's the one who's most concise, most confident, most convincing. And so I think you can't overestimate the power of having a well-crafted message. And so that may mean, combining your activism with a PR firm or people who, spending time figuring out what you want to say, how you want to say it, who you want to say it to, and when you want to say it. I mean, that stuff is supremely important. And I think a lot of movements and activism organizations and brands fail because people fail to plan on what they're going to say. I mean, in addition to what they're going to really do, but they don't know what they're saying. They're just mad, hey, ho, ho, you got to go. Or, we want justice. Yeah, okay, but what does justice mean in this case? What are you demanding? Well, we have 3 demands. And are they specific? Who are your demands being demanded of? Right? What's the timeline for the demand being responded to? What happens if people don't respond to those demands? Right? What are your next steps? I mean, now all that stuff got to be worked out before you grab a bullhorn and hit a sidewalk or walk up in a courtroom or talk to a judge or a senator or alder person or whoever. I mean, if you don't know what you're talking about, you don't need to be talking. I gotta close the store. I mean, I'm a business owner too now. I got to close it. I got to close. I want to show everybody.
Okay.
The store. Like we got, man, this is us. This is the people. We bought this store. We got the whole block actually.
So you got the whole block?
Yeah,
that's good.
So, but look, I'm excited about it. I'd love to do this again if it makes sense. You just let me know, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure people have questions. All right, so it's just me, y'all. And he'll come back again. He has to close his store that he just purchased. So I definitely appreciate his time. And hopefully when you play this back, you'll get, when you play this back, you'll get you take down some notes and you can get a greater understanding of where to go from here. Everything he's saying, I've pretty much, um, that's where I was headed anyway. I got a lot of things written down, written out. So that's what we need to do. I've already been working on apps. If there's anybody who are webmasters who knows how to build websites, I know how to design websites, but I don't always like to sit up and do that type of stuff. I'm definitely for the app though. I have been working on the app anyway. Front end and back end. Just have to get that launched for us fortifying a real campaign towards justice for Kenneka Jenkins. Yeah, Margaret, we do. We do all want to be a voice for fighting against injustice and misinformation and right, paint, and truth. The information was extremely helpful because, like he said, you can go out there and just be blowing off steam. You can go out there and just be marching, but what are you marching for? What demands are you making? And when you make your demands, what is the timeline? So one of my things in submitting letters to Attorney General, okay, I already knew the bottom had been dealt with. You spoke with this person, spoke with that person. So now, and like I said, I've always been a top up person. Now it's time to senators, governors. And technically, for governors, usually it's 90 days. I know that in certain states, 90 days. You don't get a response in 90 days. Most places, 30 days. You didn't get a response in 30 days. Well, then I'm going to follow up. I'm coming back and I'm going next level. I submitted you a formal complaint with valid points. And that's why at the beginning I said 3 valid points. 3. You didn't respond. Okay. So now it's time for me to go to the next level. Okay. You didn't respond. So now it's time for me to go to the next level. Okay. You didn't respond. So now it's time for me to get the media involved and just show all the information and let it be what it's going to be. How come you haven't responded? You bring in the media team. Now answer me in front of news media. How come you didn't respond to valid points? We're not talking about things that are not valid and cannot be proven. We're talking about concrete evidence. Right, Jackie. The demand is key. It really is. It's key. Okay. Yeah, some people have given up and created drama, but I choose not to get involved in the drama. I will comment on other people's pages on a post, but while I'm here, I don't have time to get caught up in your drama. I will make my comment. Some people have lied and are lying intentionally. But we're about justice right here. We don't have time to get caught up in the drama when you're trying to get justice, because you're always going to have drama on the other side when you're dealing with the opposing parties, attorneys, when you're dealing with people who are backing them and standing behind them. They're going to bring enough drama already. So the other little drama to me is unnecessary. You're going to have drama from the opposing party when you're fighting for justice, when you have to be in the governor's face, attorney general's faces, police officers' faces, their lawyers' faces. They're going to have enough drama for you. So The low level drama, I just whatever with that. Right. It's about getting justice. Um, yeah, somebody can create a Facebook group, and I have a bias against Facebook. I'm gonna just be honest. Well, it's a lot of channels out here that really try not to focus on the drama, but they do address people, and I believe you do have a right as a person to address issues and concern. Me, I like to do mine face to face. I'm not going to do this. We can meet in person live and we can do it face to face because this right here, no, meet with me in my face and tell me what your issue what your issue is. Other than that, it's not even worth it because like I said, you're already going to have a host of attorneys, and I've seen these attorneys be nasty. I've seen attorneys try to get cases thrown out on font sizes. I've seen judges sit up on cases for years and try to run the statutes of limitations out on them. I've seen the antics are unbelievable. When you really start fighting for a cause and working towards justice, the antics and the pushback from the other side is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah, painted truth. Why did they? Well, we already know why they did. Corruption, from my perspective, corruption. Yeah, making an Instagram, a Twitter, getting a public domain. Yeah, there are. Donna, there's a lot of shady things going on in Rosemont and have been going on for years. Uh, I'm gonna have to see what the statute of limitations is on her case, which was smart on Mrs. Teresa Martin's attorney's behalf because she do have civil attorneys and they do know the statutes of limitations on cases, and that's why her case is being litigated in court at this moment. Her attorneys are not letting the judge just just sit up on this case and run the time clock out on this. They are consistently litigating, so that's good. Mm, well, Margaret, it depends on. They didn't deem it as a murder. They deemed it as an accident. That's the way they have it worded. So she definitely had to get in there before the statutes of limitations expired. Right. Why did they serve the needs of the business before the mother? I would say social bias, classism, gender bias. You can see all of that in the way Miss Martin was treated. Definitely, because if she was a multimillionaire, if she was a billionaire, if she was someone that they considered to be affluent and of quote unquote some type of status, she would have never gotten treated that way. Also, if she had and I'm not saying the men around her were weak, but if she had a stronger group of males around her, she wouldn't have gotten treated that way. Um, Even if she was a man, treatment would have been totally different. So Yeah, wrongful death, Margaret. And I'm reading through everybody's comments. I really appreciate everybody stopping in for the live stream tonight too. Yeah. So he definitely, in my perspective, gave some direction. So we all appreciate direction. Mm. Margaret, they've done that with some Caucasian parents too. Is more common with um, black parents, but they'll try it. They'll try it with just the female. They would try it. Like I said, sexism. There was a man. There's no way they would have just him hawed around like that. Mm-mm. No, absolutely not. I appreciate everybody too for, like I said, stopping into this live stream. And hopefully you all learn something. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna rewatch it, and I will take notes because I'm that type of person. I like to go back and rewatch, take notes. And I am still working on getting some attorneys on the panel. I do have one attorney that has confirmed. Uh, so we can do a round table with attorneys who actually litigate. And I'm probably going to go for silver attorneys because this really can cross over into a civil case. Yeah. So, ladies, I see mainly ladies on here. We have some work to do. Can reorganize, restructure, make our demands. We have a host of information out there that we can go off of. And I think by now, anybody who's been paying attention can fluently go into a courtroom and almost basically probably litigate this case. I'm just strolling through here reading comments. Yeah, yeah, Margaret, you brought up a good point. And the city of Rosemont can be sued. Now, what I was wanting to happen is the attorney general to put her weight on the city of Rosemont, usurp their authority, get them on corruption, go in, override their decision, reopen the case. And in doing that, sue them in the process. You have a great day at work, Jackie. Thank you. All right, Margaret. You stay blessed. Yeah, Jackie, stay blessed. So I'm excited uh, when I get involved in things like this. They usually call me the closer. I may not come in at the beginning, but I do come in at the ending and I will close it. So I am here for the long haul when it comes to justice, committed long term. So, ladies, it is 9 o'clock, and I want to say this. You all have a pleasant evening, a pleasant night. I really enjoyed this live stream with you all. You all have a blessed and prosperous week next week. And we have some organization to do. We have some spokespeople that we need to select. We have a core team. We need to get together, a core, super core, and um, everything else. All right. So see y'all too. Plenty much love to everybody. Bye bye.